Hello everybody. Can you hear me well? All right. So people are still joining us. So I will give them a few seconds before we can get this started. So let's start with introductions. I'm Jamil. I'm the director of product and operations here at Beetleworks. Have been working in Beetleworks and in the industry for the past 11 years now. So a long time. And the goal of the session, as I always say, is to try to show something new or teach uh, new people about our platform, especially linguists in general. So this session, this workshop is mostly focusing on the translators or reviewers use case. So if you have your own accounts in Beetleworks and you are trying to know how to use it in the in a optimized way, or if you are a linguist that is working for a translation agency or LSP, which is the same thing, you can also benefit from this session. All right. So to guide us throughout the session, I have a quick presentation, the same that I always use for the session that I'm going to share in a second. Hi, Agustina. Good to have you here. So let me start sharing my screen and then we can get things started. Give me just a second. Entire screen. There we go. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen well. By the way, I want to make this workshop as interactive as possible. So if you have questions, if there are any troubles with your sound, or if you want me to zoom in so you can read better what's on my screen, please do let me know in the chat so I can make those adjustments throughout the session. Again, this is just a quick presentation to guide me through the session. But if you have different subjects, you have different questions that are not being addressed here, please do let me know in the chat. I'll try my best to answer those questions in this session or in the next session. Before we begin, so last but not least, so I'm hosting the sessions every Wednesday currently. So if you cannot uh, be here with us until the end of the session, this session is being recorded. The same happened with all the previous sessions as well. So those sessions will be available on our YouTube channel, Beetleworks, and also our LinkedIn channel. All right. Okay, so let's start talking about this main topics we have in here. And there's more people joining. Hello. All right. So again, this is the agenda that I have. But if you have other items that you would like to hear or understand about the platform, please do let me know in the chat. I'll do my best to pause and try to respond to the questions as we go. All right. So I will start by creating an account in Beetleworks, a simple account. Do the initial setup, which is really important. Creating your first project in the platform, and then we start digging into translating content with Beetleworks, which is probably the one of the main subjects for most of the people here in the session. And then I'm going to move on to the top questions of the week. So I do have some questions that I received in the previous session or right before the session here. I'm going to try to cover all those questions during this session. If that's not possible, and of course, if there are additional questions, I may address that in the following sessions in the following days. All right. Okay, so to get things started, so let's start creating your account. To create your account, I'll be quick on that. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on that since it's a pretty simple process. You go to beetleworks.com/pricing. From here, you can select your plan. So there's the yearly plan, the monthly plan. So for the sake of the session, I'm not going to dig too deep into those different plans. You can go to the website and check which one works better for you. So if you are just a recommendation, if you are a translator, a single translator, you are going to probably use the solo. Then you can change to monthly or yearly. If you're a LSP, a project manager, um, you're going to probably use Boutique or Clockwork, or maybe Quantum if you have a big LSP, and so on. So you can go through this. The main difference here, I would say that there are the features we have available on each plan, and also the number of words we have per year for each plan. So, for instance, for a solo translator, 600K per year. For a quantum, the enterprise plan, we have 9 million words per year. You have the ability to automate most of your process. As a clockwork user, for boutique, you don't have all the automation, but you have other aspects of the platform, such as payables, receivables, quality management, tasks, and so on. All right, again, I'll let you go through this. There are more information down below here as well. For this session, I'm going to impersonate a translator. So I'm a solo translator. I want to start with a monthly plan. By the way, there's a 14 days free trial, so no credit card required. So if you do want to test out the platform, please do so. There's no commitment after these 14 days. If you do decide to subscribe to the platform, then you can enter your credit card information in on the payment page. But you can do that afterwards, of course, if you are happy with the platform. All right, so I'm a solo translator. I select the monthly plan. I want to start paying monthly instead of yearly. I can switch that later as well. It's $9 per month. Oh, by the way, there's 20% off if you change to yearly. But I'm going to start monthly. I can just click on this for this plan or on these others for these other plans. This will get me here. I'm just going to put my name and email address in here. When I click on Get Started, I'm going to receive an email from the platform. In this email, I'm going to be asked to set up my password so I can access the platform. And then, excuse me, from there, you're going to access app.bitoworks, excuse me, bwx.io. We're changing that. app.bwx.io, you're going to enter your email address, the same one that you used in here, and the password that you just set from the email that you received. So those are the credentials you are going to use to access the platform. All right. Once you access the platform, that would be your home screen. Of course, I'm in demo environment just because it's a demo session. And also, I have a lot of projects, the same thing because it's just a demo account, all right? Okay, so we created account. Initial setup, that's important. Um, I can create a project real quick, but let me do that, and then I can explain to you the difference, right? So let me start first creating a project. I can do that right away. So you create your account. You can go right away to this button in here, start a new project, or even go to project, new project. You can select the files that you would like to upload in here. You can drag and drop or select from your computer. I'm going to select from my computer some different files, so strings, an XML, a text, a Word document, and Excel. So some different files in here. All right. Continue. I'm just going to proceed with this first one real quick. Hi, Marietta. Good to have you here. Workshop 8. I have some source and target language in here. Translation memory, glossaries, a price list, all that. Okay, so that's the first thing. If I skipped this initial setup, which is fine, again, if you just want to create your first project right away, as I'm doing, that's fine. You can just access the platform, move straight to create project and do all this step by step in here. The difference, what's going to happen is that none of this information will be available for you right away. So you have to manually select this. So for instance, you'll be like this. There will be no translation memory, no glosses selected, no price list selected, um, no source and target language selected. If you're creating one project to test a platform, that's fine. But since you are testing the platform, most likely you're going to create multiple projects with multiple files so you can see how the platform behaves, right? With these different contexts. For that, it become boring. So you need to manually have to select all the languages or multiple or a single language every time that they are creating a project. You have to select relational memory and glossaries every time you are creating a project. So the initial setup, it helps us to create like a template, which will help us to skip all those steps. I'm going to show that in a minute. Anyways, so I'm going to continue. I can also change the workflow steps. To make it simple, I'm just going to keep translation in this project for all those languages. I just have two languages, so I have five different files, two languages, which are Spanish Mexico and Portuguese Brazil, in one workflow step. There we go. The project have been created. The project transitioned automatically from draft into pending. What happened here is that as soon as the file gets processed, that happened like in a split second, as you saw. It calculates the number of words, it creates a log file, one for each language, right? And then, based on the number of words we have in here, and the price list that I'm using, I already had one created previously, it generates the cost. So that's how this automation works. So you upload your files. If you have a price list in place, automatically after processing the files in creating the project, is going to calculate the cost rate. So without you having to go in here and change the status manually from draft to approve. That's one thing. That's the first automation. Second automation happens, excuse me, when you transition the project from pending into approved, which I'm going to do that, which I'm going to do in a second. Just before I do it, a quick explanation about the status. So what changed here, right? It changed from draft into pending, and now I'm going to change it from pending to approved. So what's the difference? Draft means you are still working on the code. You are still preparing the code. Some projects may require you to add some additional fees. For instance, the platform is calculating automatically the number of words, right? Let's say that other than number of words, I require some, I don't know, maybe project management fee, which I already have set up in my press list as well. I have design work, I have pre or post engineering work. So draft means that I'm still working on the code, I'm still preparing this. When the code is ready, I change it to pending, which means okay, I prepare the code, I'm sending the code to my client, which is going to access the platform or not. You can also export the code and send to your client through email, download this PDF report. But basically, pending means you are waiting for your client to approve the code, right? That you created. Once your client approves the code, if they have access to the platform, they can just go in here with the user and approve the project. So you can start working on the translation. Or if you are just exchanging mails with your client, once you receive the green light, you can just approve the project, right? So draft, preparing code, pending, waiting for approval on the code, approve it, we can get started translating the content. All right. I see a question here from Susanna. How does the system know how to price? Does it put in your per word file or does it estimate it for you? If so, on what basis? It calculates costs based on the number of words and other items. I'm going to show that real quick in here. So just to give you an idea, I can cover this in more detail maybe in the next session, but basically for this account in here, of course, this is not a new account. So this account already had a price list set up. So I go in here, I set up, okay, English into German. I'm charging 30 cents per word. English into Spanish, Latin America, 20, and so on. So there are some other languages here. I can add others, of course, and set their value in here. And then we have the coefficient. So this is the translation matches. So 0 to 100%, which usually like the new word, 100% match, context match, and so on, the repetitions. Uh, so what the platform does, so let me go back to the project that I just created, which is this one. Okay. Automatically, based on the number of words I have in those 5 files that I uploaded for Portuguese, and then for Spanish, it calculates the number of words in here and the fuzzy matches as well, right? So it calculates that against your price list. Mine is this one. Yours could be completely different. You can change anything here, the fees, how much you are charging for each language, and so on. And that will guide the system on how to create those costs, right? Um, okay, let me see what else. My issue before I tried it months ago is that does not allow you to delete the file you put in. Many clients do not want their docs sitting outside their system. I understand that. Okay, so I understand. Let me just recap your question, Susanna. So your client sends you, let's say, a Word document, right? You create a project for them. You create a code for them, and then after the completion of the project, they want the file to be deleted from our system. That's fine. We can now, let me revert to draft. Okay, let me just, okay. So you can go in here and delete the file from the system. So for instance, okay, so you receive all those 5 files, you code it, you send to your client, they approve it, you completed the work, and then they told you, okay, now I want my file to be deleted from the system that you have been using to translate it. You can go in here, you have to change the project to draft, right? So you cannot delete files for a project that's marked as deliver or completed, but you can select the file or multiple files and delete it. That's fine, that works. I don't know many use cases similar to that, like where the client really needs the file to be deleted after the completion. That can create other problems, such as how you are going to find this file in the future if you need it, right? But yes, it does have the ability to allow you to delete that now. In the past, as you mentioned, yes, we just had the ability to do that internally, but now you, as an account admin of your account, you also have the ability to delete files from the system, which again can create other problems, but that's now possible. All right, so going back to the creation of the project, I explained the status here. Let me convert to the back into approve it. Okay, project is approved. That's the first project. So what I did, just for a recap, I upload the files, I select languages, workflow steps, create the file, create the project, excuse me. The platform automatically create a log file and calculate the cost based on the price list that I had in here. Um, and then also my client or myself just review the code and say, okay, the code looks good. I change it from pending into approved. All right. And now I can start working on the translation of the content by clicking on any of those files, or maybe joining multiple files, joining multiple files at once like this. So this is a single file, just this Excel file, or this is a joined files. So I have one file here, which is these strings. I can start, of course, translating that and making changes and then confirm those segments. And as we go down, we can see the next file and the next file, right? Let me see another question here in the chat from Jogo. Thank you for the question, Jogo. Thank you for the question as well, Susanna. I'm really liking that. So please keep it sending questions in here. I also have a question. I don't know if you have covered it already, but we are just trying BuildWorks and we have clients who have many contact points. How do we add extra contact points on our client organization unit file? Um, if Let me try to cover this in two different ways. So one way is you need multiple people to be part of an organization unit like this. So this is an organization unit. I have two people in here. For that, it's pretty simple. You can create the new user in here and associate this person with an organization. And then going to that user profile, associations, you can also add this person to another organizational unit like this, right? So that's one thing. The other thing that you could also mean by that is you have one project for one organization and you have multiple contact points, right? If that's the case, so for instance, you have one field in here, it's contact, right? And you have just one person assigned to this field. If you have multiple people that should be like contact points, the only way you could do it is if you create like an alias, a group of emails for them. So for instance, it could be client at anything.com, right? So, oh, okay. uh, anyway, so if you create an alias, a group of emails, you could have multiple people receiving notifications from the contact in here from this field. If that's what you mean by like having multiple people in the organization. Otherwise, you can only add one person at a time or per project as a contact person in a given project. All right. I hope this responded to your question. If not, please do let me know. All right. Continuing, I approved this project. Now I can start again, as I mentioned, working on it file by file or joining multiple files. Anyway, so that was just to show you how to create a project right away. You can do it. You create your account, you can go straight away to this button and create your first project. Now, what I do recommend, and that's the initial setup, which is pretty simple, okay? But would be really helpful if you are testing the platform for the first time. You go to organization units instead first. You just create your account, you exit the platform, go to organization units. From there, you're going to set up basic parameters such as which languages, source and target languages you commonly use on your projects. Okay, so in my projects, for instance, those are the main languages that I use. What's going to happen is that whenever I try to create a new project, automatically those languages, English, US, French, Japanese, Portuguese, and Spanish, are going to be pulled automatically for me in that project that I'm creating. That's one thing. Now, next up is translation settings. When I pre-translate the project, what I want to have, what I want, how I want to pre-translate the project. I want to use machine translation, or I don't want to use machine translation. I want to pre-translate with context sensitive or not. You can do that just so you know at the project level as well. But if you do here for every project that you creating the platform, that's going to be pulled automatic. So that's more to help you. It's like a template. So let's say that yes, I want to, since I'm testing the platform, I want to have all the files, all the projects to be pre-translated using machine translation. Okay, so I can activate this. I'm activating also to confirm and lock segments that are 100 and 101% match in the translation memories, um, and some other standard features, but you can play around with those ones. But I think that this is the most important one. So how you want to put that content with just translation memory, that's default, with translation memory machine translation, or with context sensitive. You decide which one is going to be best for you to test the platform. Next up, context. Context means translation memory and glossary. Which translation memories and glossaries you would like to use in your projects. One thing that's important to mention, when you create your account in the platform, automatically the platform is going to create one translation memory, which is this one, and one glossary, which is this one. What I recommend you to do is to just open those real quick. They will be empty, of course, but now my already have some content, but they will be empty. Just check if the languages in here are the ones that you are going to use in your projects. So for instance, okay, so sources English US, Portuguese Portuguese Brazil, and Portuguese Portugal. Okay, so but my project then, or the project that I'm going to create, will have Spanish. If I don't add Spanish in here, when I create the project, this translation memory is not going to be used in it. So I have to go in here, edit, and then set up like Mexico, or it could be Spanish LA, or another kind of Spanish. Save it. Okay, now if I create a project from English into Spanish, Mexico, that translation memory can be used in my project. All right. Another thing is to check is important to make sure that the translation memories or the translation memory is in default mode, read and write default, because otherwise you have to manually add to the project. Read and write, so you can read the content from the translation memory, and write, you can write content to the translation memory when, excuse me, when you confirm the segment. All right. Glossary, same thing, but there's no read and write functionality, just the default option in here. All right. Let me check Susanna's question. Can I build a glossary that I can go back to the for future project? Would the file be independent from the document that translated and deleted? Would the glossary be deleted together with the deleted file? Tristan, or can I up to the glossary this? Um, okay, let me respond this in different parts. So starting with the last question. Does my glossary become part of the BuildWorks system? The glossary is part of your account in BuildWorks. So I, as an account admin, as someone who just subscribe to the platform, or I'm testing the platform, I'm having my own account. So that's everything that I create here, projects, glossaries, translation memories, belong to my account. So only myself and anyone that I invite to my account to have access to those assets. That's the first thing. So it's not a glossary that's available for anyone in VideoWorks, only for you and for the people that are part of your account. So in my case, if I create those glossaries that I created, are only available for the people that I invited to my account here, right? That's one thing. The glossary, if you create the glossary on your account and only you have the access to your account, so there's just one user in your account, only you will have the access to it. So no one else will have the access to your glossary or the content in it. What else? Would the file be independent from the document? Would be the file? Yeah, the glossaries are independent. So I can have this translation memory, or the glossary here, that can be used in many files or one file. I can decide that. Okay, so a good example, I have a client that has legal pages or legal documents, and I create this glossary that's BWX legal glossary. If I want to use this for just one project, that's fine. I can do that. I'm going to associate this glossary with a single project and use it strictly for that project. Or maybe not. Maybe they have multiple projects from legal, and that glossary can also be used for all those legal projects for the same client. All right. I can associate the same glossary with all those projects from the same client. Uh, so yeah, basically the glossary, there's no relation one-to-one glossary to project, unless you do that, unless you prefer to have one glossary created for each project, which is not common. The most common scenarios I see in general is my client has multiple departments, a legal, a website, a marketing, a technical, and each of those departments have one glossary specifically. And I also see some use case where, while they have many departments with different content type, they have just one glossary. So really depends on how the content is managed by each client, but it can be used in many different ways. Yeah, okay. I'm going to respond to your question in one more second, Susanna. That will be covered by next ensure, I believe, how VideoWorks train this engine. Let me just finish up my point here about the organizations. So, quick recap: organizations are just a way to help you to set up a template, which can be used whenever you create a new project in the platform. So you can set up how you want to have your project be translated, which translation memories and glossary you want to use, which price list you want to use, targets and source language, and some other details as well, such as regular expressions, filters, and some other aspects of your project. Right. So this is a template. So the reason why I want to show you that this initial setup is because it can be really helpful when you are testing the platform, because the expectation is that you are going to create multiple projects. So, and when you create multiple projects, you have a way to simplify that process, which is this template that can make it easier for you to do that. Okay, so that was the initial setup that I want to talk about. Now, translating with VideoWorks. I already opened the editor. Let me go back to the same project I had in here. And I also can respond to Susanna's question. Okay, so I'm open one file. Okay, I can, again, as I showed, I can join multiple files for the same workflow step and the same language. Just for instance, I cannot, of course, join different files. For instance, Spanish Mexico, and Portuguese Brazil. I cannot join those files because there are different languages, of course. And the same if I had like translation, another one for reviewing in Spanish. I cannot join files from different workflows as well. Okay, I'm open just one file here. One thing that's important to mention, in my account, I already activated the AI usage. So that's not activated by default. You can, when you access the platform, you can go to settings, you can go to translation settings, large language models, so LLMs. That will be inactivated by default. You can turn it on, okay, and that will allow you to use all those features in here, which I'm going to talk about in a few seconds. But that's not activated by default. Okay, my account that I already activated previously. Okay, with that activated, whenever I go to a file and I click on any of those segments that are empty, my context-sensitive translation is going to propose to me something, all right? And how does this mechanism work? I have a screenshot, actually a presentation here, which explain that in detail. Okay, we have a machine translation, if that's activated as well, that can also be turned off, of course. I have a glossary and I have a translation memory. How does this context sensitive works, right? So what we are not doing, we are not, let me open AI here. What we are not doing, we are not taking, for instance, this content here, put in GPT and say, okay, please translate that into something, right? We are not doing that. That's the first thing. What we are doing, especially because GPT is not meant to be a translation engine, right? The way we created all this was to allow GPT to make a logical decision or probabilistic decision on what translation most likely will fit in that particular segment. And how we do that? We provide context to GPT. When I say context, let me talk about glossary, translation memory, machine translation. All that together, I'm not going to explain this in detail because this is kind of more complex, but there's a lot of process happening here until you get up to number 6, which is translated text. But basically, we are passing a lot of knowledge to GPT, so the work units, machine translation, if activated, translation memories, glossaries, and user preferences, ranking those contexts, and then providing back a translated text for the translator, which is likely to be used by that translator in that particular segment. Why I'm explaining all that? Because just and also responding to Susanna's question. How do I train AI? Right? I train AI by doing something like this. Actually, Smile will not a good example. I'm going to do this. I'm going to select champions in the source content. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see better. And I'm saying that champions should not be translated. So in my glossary or in my client glossary, I have champions as champions. So it's not a translatable word, right? So in my glossary, I'm teaching my glossary that, okay, champions should be kept in English, all right? And also, let me see. I think that's fine. I'm going to just make that change. And now I'm going to refresh the AI suggestion. So that's the AI suggestion originally. Let's see if it's going to take into consideration now my glossary term that I just added. No, it did not. Why did it not take into consideration? Because it understood that in this context, it does not make sense to, excuse me, to keep champions untranslated um, in this segment. So in general, the glossary will be used whenever I try to apply my context-sensitive translation. In some cases, it is not going to use it because it is probably risky. So you understand that the chances are that this is not the best translation. But I can say, okay, but that's what my client wants. So I'm going to override that. And now I have champions as champions in the target as well. Okay, now what I did here, I did two things. So first thing, I tried to guide my engine, my context sensitive translation engine, that champion should be kept in English. When I asked it again to propose to me something else using my glossary, it did not agree with my glossary and it's still kept in Spanish. Okay. Now I'm the decision maker. I'm the final translator. And I'm saying that, yes, my client wants champions to be champions. So what I did was to manually go in there and change it to champions and confirm it that second. Now, what I did here was to teach my engine that through my glossaries term that I added here and through the translation memory that champions should be champions. Now, let's see if based on that, based on those changes that I made to the previous segment, AI is now going to follow my glossary and translation memory. Let's see it. Still not. So it's still disagreeing with me and saying that champions should be campeones. I'm going to keep going until AI understand that that's what should be used. And that's just, so for instance, that's another mechanism of AI is trying to tell me that champions is not related to Spanish, which is correct. But again, based on my client requests, I have to use champions on it. So I make the change again, and I'm going to confirm the segment again. And on and on and on until AI is finally using my term. And again, this may not be the best example because it is not following my glossary, but the thing here is, how do I train AI? So AI is trained on the fly. So whenever I go in here and confirm a segment, I'm teaching AI. Whenever I add a term to the glossary, I'm teaching AI. What does that mean? It does mean that if, for instance, I'm going to my translation memory or my glossary, I go in here and I say that, okay, so In the past, I used máquina as translation for machine. Now I no longer want to use it. I want to remove this. All right. So that knowledge have been removed from the platform. Why? Because this the training we are talking about is not that your glossary or your translation memory is going to be stored somewhere else outside of Bitworks. It's not stored on GPT. The knowledge lives in Bitworks in your account. So all the changes that you make here on the fly are going to be used by the mechanism to make a decision, probabilistic decision on how this should be translated. And again, this with time will become better and better because since you are training the engine the way that the content should be translated, is going to adapt and learn from you, right? I'm saying that because, especially at the beginning, when you are not used to these mechanisms, you are going to probably, again, look at this segment, all those three segments that I confirmed first, and say, okay, it is champions, but it should be, oh, excuse me, it is campeones, but should be champions. So that's bad. I'm not going to use AI. Yes, that's a decision you can do, by the way, right? So you can go in here and say, okay, I'm not no longer want to use context sensitive. But my point is, as you understand the mechanism that it is learning based on the change that you are making, over time, this tends to improve that. All right. So don't get frustrated if in the first few interactions it is not going to capture exactly how you would translate that content in that given scenario. All right. Let me see. Susanna compares to be the right word in different contexts. Would the system suggest that for eyes and other? Yes, that's the idea, Susanna. So that's why, and that's a good example. That's one of the main reasons why AI is not using champions in that suggestion. Is because first off, it is not wrong to use campeones. That's not an incorrect translation, right? There was a preference from, for instance, my client that champions should be kept as champions. So probabilistically, or looking at the context, and by context I mean not only the glossary or translation memory, but previous segments, next segments, the large language model is trying to make a decision and propose something that will most likely be used or be correct or be good for the translator. And in the end, of course, the translator is the one who makes the final decision. So as you mentioned, so in several or most scenarios, campeones should be campeones, should not be kept in English, right? So, and you as a decision maker, as a translator, can go in there and just confirm that campeones should be campeones and move on to the next segment, right? But again, the difference to explain about this context sensitive translation as opposed to translation memory and glossaries. Translation memories, glossaries, even machine translation, they are not context sensitive, which is not bad. Okay, just to make it clear, those are good features we have. So translation memory is trying to match something that you translated previous, right? The machine translation will propose something for you that may be good, that may be good enough, that may be bad, right? But they are not adaptable. The glossary is the same thing. The glossary is something uh, that is not going to change over time unless you go in there to the glossary and say, okay, no, that should be campeones, right? But those features, they don't adapt over time. They are like fixed, right? They just store content and use in the file. Um, but this is, let me see Geoffrey's question. That's not exact. This is not exactly the way they work. Not really. So maybe I can find another file here to give you a better example. To try to explain better, maybe I have this doc file. Okay. Translation memory. Let me ask you this. So context sensitive use precious, right? Let me try to change that. So if I confirm the segment, This goes into the translation memory, right, as precious. Okay, now let me unconfirm this, and let me say that pricing, let's try again, the same thing that did not work for the other one, pricing should be pricing. All right, let me try now to refresh this pricing. Okay, so what happens here, Geoffrey, is that that's what I'm trying to explain. So translation memory, the glossary, and the machine translation, they're not adaptable. The only adaptation they have is when you change something. All right. Now, for instance, it is precious. If I confirm this now, it is going to have pricing in the translation memory as opposed to precious, right? But I had to make this change. The context sensitive is trying to propose to you something based on all this context. So the context sensitive looked at the translation memory, it looked at the machine translation, it looked at the glossary. Oh, by the way, the glossary has the higher priority as well in here. And understand that the glossary has a higher priority, it prioritizes what is available in the glossary. The translation memory now is adapted to pricing, right? But it's something that I stored in there. The difference for the context sensitive is not stored anywhere, right? It is basing on all this learning that I'm providing to it, right? And maybe let me try to find another one. It could be anyone. We try a bigger segment like this. Let's see how this is going to be translated. Ok, nuestra tecnología te permite traducir más rápido y mejor. Okay, I'm going to confirm this. All right. By the way, that's the suggestion, original suggestion from the context sense, as you can see. So, nuestra tecnología te permite traducir, etc. I confirm it. It is stored now in my translation memory. I have nothing in my glossary here. Now, let me try to do something. Let me try to say that tech should be technology. I'm going to publish this. Let's see if AI is now going to suggest something different. Or maybe not. Let's see. It's still not. Still keep it technology because AI understood that in this context, it does not make sense to follow what's in my glossary, which is technology, but that's the difference, right? It is making a decision based on the context. Translation memory is not making a decision, it's just applying this exact as it is stored in it. Machine translation, same thing. If I click here, it's going to apply exactly this as it is. The same for the glossary as well. Since the context sensitive is trying to make sense of all this, it may use what's in here, it may not use what is in here if it understand based on all this context that it does not make sense to use any of those inputs in here, right? Maybe let me see if I have one which is I don't know if it responds to your question, Geoffrey, but that's how it works again. So it is not just blindly applying the content that have been stored. It is also trying to make sense of all the inputs that is receiving. Agência de tradução, empresas necessitam. No, I want to have one which has. There we go. Maybe this one. Okay, so this one has, for some reason, you. Okay. Let me ask AI translate. Okay. Let's say that you. So you here is. Te permite. I'm going to put. Let's put this in Portuguese, maybe. Let's see if it's going to use it. Probably not. But let me refresh the suggestion. No, it did not. Because this is Portuguese. If I open this Portuguese one, which is here, maybe I can show a better example. Oh, these are being already confirmed, but I can make changes to it. Okay, maybe this one. I'm going to unlock the segments. I'm going to change you to the plural. Okay, so instead of you, it could be like in plural in Portuguese, vocês. I'm going to publish this. Let me just see what else we have in here. But I do not have this. Okay, now I'm going to refresh this. Okay, so now a language that I speak, Portuguese. So I can try to explain it better what happened here. So in this translation here, it is literally what I have here in English. So it matches exactly what I had in this source. Okay. What I did in here was to add to the glossary the plural of you, which in Portuguese is vocês, right? In the translation, the original translation, which is stored in my translation memory, which is also the one proposed by the machine translation, it is in the singular, it's using você, not vocês, all right? There's an additional S in the plural form. When I add it to the glossary, the plural say, okay, you should be plural, used in plural, and then I asked the context sensitive to propose me a new translation based on that change that I made. Not only did it change it, so now instead of você, which is singular, vocês in plural, it also changed the context around that because now that you is in plural, traduza is no longer correct. It should be also in plural, which is traduzam, right? But as you can see, none of those were stored in the translation memory. So você traduza, and você traduza, which is also what it is in now, currently in my translation, based on the term that I added to the glossary, which is in plural, it adapted all the, not only that word, right? Because if they adapted just você to vocês, it still is going to be wrong because this also should be adapted. So also the content around that term that I changed was also adapted, right? So that's the main difference between, and that's again just one example. There are multiple examples. So it could be formal to informal. It could be changing the gender of the content. So it is not just going to adapt the particular change or adapt based on the particular term that you added in here. If the context around the term should also be adapted, AI is going to understand that and adapt all the context around it to propose to something that makes sense. All right. I hope this clarifies. We have five more minutes. I don't know if you have other questions, but before we close this, I have these questions which I could not respond in this session, but new customer wants to get more familiar with the basic functionality of VideoWorks, would like to see some of the AI related features. I can explain that real quick. So first one I showed you, context-sensitive translation. It is using translation memory, glossaries, and machine translation. It learns on the fly. It means that by on the fly means as soon as you make a change here, it gets stored in your glossary, in your translation memory, is going to be used for the next step. The other ones are available here. Fixed tags, which is pretty simple. So basically, I don't know if this file has tags, but you as a translator or a projection manager already saw files with a lot of tags, and it's really painful to fix that. The feature, what it does, let me take this one for instance. Let me delete this, delete this. When I go in there and click on fix tags, it's going to try to fix the tag in the right position. There we go, like this. We could have like multiple tags. There are some segments. These are smaller segments. Some segments have 10 tags, 20 tags. The idea here is to let the AI do that work for you and automatically fix the tags. Next up is this alternative suggestion. This is completely the opposite of the context sensitive on purpose. Just to explain, for the context sensitive, we are providing the large language model a lot of context, translation memory, glossary, machine translation. For this one, for the alternative suggestion, we are not providing any context other than the source content. So we are just sending to the large language model this. So just the source on purpose, because we do want the AI to propose something different. So how you are going to use that? So based on the feedback that I received from translators in general, they use that when, for instance, is a excuse me, is a content, a kind of content that they are not used to do on a daily basis, and they are not really not sure how the best way to translate something in that context. So they what they do is to use this to maybe try to propose to them something that's different from what they think that's correct. So just to give them like um, more context or uh, more food for thought, so they can make the best decision. One thing that's cool here is that uh, it is not contextualized, as I mentioned, but it gives you all the explanation why that translation have been suggested to you. So, possibilitamos, ou why that have been proposed to you, você, and automatize, and tradução, and capitalization, and blah, blah. So that's to help you, or try to help you to receive an alternative suggestion that can be helpful or not. Okay, so since it is not contextualized, maybe it is not to be really helpful for you. Proofreading, you can just run, excuse me, the proofreading functionality by clicking on this button on the entire segment that you are translating. That's going to make the fixes required. Check smell. Smell is this one down below here. I don't know if you can see it, but that's the. By the way, that's exactly the one that I just changed it. No, that's not. But anyway, so it captures a lot of semantic issues or potential issues in the file, right? So again, it's up to the translator to make the changes needed if there's some actual error here, but it tries to give directions to the translator. So okay, so this segment here may have something that that's not correct. So for instance, in this one, it is saying that English text use a neutral form, you want the person's translation uses a formal form, which is vocês, which I don't agree with. So it is not vocês is not formal. So I can just ignore it and move on into the next segment. So again, it's up to the translator to make the decision. It is the decision maker. The idea of this mail is try to just give to the translator some clue about something that may not be correct. As you can see, there are others. I'm not going to, of course, go through all this. There are several other types of issues, potential issues that smells can capture, but smells is basically that. So just try to smell potential errors in the translations. If there is smell in a segment, it does not mean that's wrong. It means that there are chance that something can be better or could be better, right? So the translator will go in there, have a look at the smells, at the suggestion. If the translator agrees with the change, he or she can just make the adaptations needed and confirm the segment. If the translator do not agree with the suggestions here, you can just ignore. You can just override. Okay, so again, for instance, I don't agree with those. I can just override that and move on to the next thing. Okay, so the translator is the decision maker in the end. All right, so I have quite a few questions here for the next session. Next time, next week, I'm going to start with those. I think that Other than this one, is also I covered partially in the session, but I'm going to talk about that in the next one. So all those three questions I'm going to cover the next session. Uh, we are right on time. So I thank you for the questions, Susanna, Jeffrey, everyone who Diogo, everyone who sent questions in the chat. If you have additional questions, please do send us before the next session so I can capture those and put here in the document so I can try to cover those as well. Appreciate your time and your patience. Give you a try to the platform. Again, and hopefully, if you start testing the platform, maybe this week or maybe early next week, in the next time, next Wednesday, you have some new questions for me. So please bring those questions to me, and I'm going to do my best to try to address those during the session. All right. I hope you have a good time with the platform. I can tell you at the beginning, it's not going to be easy, especially if you are not used to AI, as long as you understand that how engine works is not going to be good right away, it's not going to translate as you would like it to be translated right away because you are the professional. But if you understand that you are teaching it and over time is going to learn for you and follow uh, what you understand that's a good translation, then over time you're probably going to be benefit from the AI usage. All right. But yeah, so don't get frustrated. It's adaptation process. I can tell you at the beginning that the suggestions probably not going to be good. But if you keep adding terms to the glossary and making changes and confirming segments, over time you're going to feel a huge difference in productivity, in everything, even the quality of the deliverables, because AI can do this hard work or fixing tags or finding minor mistakes, and you can focus on okay how the end audience is going to feel that information. Thanks so much, Susanna. Appreciate that. Appreciate everyone's time here. I talk to you next week, and I hope that you give it a try to be works and you come to next session with additional questions to me. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the week. Bye bye.